Welcome back to the forum.
So we're going to go and add a subquery. Now, a lot of you might be used to just creating a subquery and staying on this dependent subquery. What we're actually going to do is an independent subquery. And what this gives us is the ability to pull from a different data set or a different table of data that's not related to your student at all. And we're just going to call this events. You're going to want, because we're going to be doing this as a for loop, you want this name to be pretty simple, maybe some lower cases, no spaces, very short. And then now we're not going to do records here because we're not trying to pull a list of students or anything like that. We're going to want related. And we're just going to come down here. Oh, they have a lot of stuff in this in this clean slate. So I'm just going to choose form because forms are used for, well, forms, events, scheduler. So we're going to use that. And we're going to change this from a rank to a dictionary export. If you haven't used the dictionary export before, it's very similar to like a concatenate, but instead of being very locked in with the order and the presentation of your exports, you're just essentially creating a library of merge fields that you can pull in and replicate. Now we're going to start with this first record that's going to be fitting our criteria of our query and filters. And we're going to limit this to 20, let's say. So we're not going to list more than 20 upcoming events in this email. You could limit this to 5, 10, 50, however you want, however long you want your list to be in Slate. And we're going to drop this all inside of a table. So it'll have columns, rows, to give it a bit of structure. So it's a little bit more forgiving if you are adding several records to this. I probably should have, yeah, about 5 minutes in. Okay. So we'll probably go for about an hour. So probably about 10:40-ish tonight. So I'll keep an eye on that and try not to go too much longer than that. So we're going to do a few different pieces here. I kind of touched on some of them earlier in the intro, but one of the pieces we're going to do is we're going to link to the event for some of these, so the student can sign up directly on the event. But for some of them, we're going to have an umbrella event because there's going to be some on-campus events. Student who comes to campus uses like an umbrella campus visit template, essentially, instead of signing up directly for the individual events. So we're just going to maybe say this is just the umbrella event. And this does get a little tricky when you have your independent subquery as your main and then a dependent. This will also be an independent as well, but you have two independent subqueries that are going to be the same base. It gets a little tricky. So you just kind of have to remember that because you are adding this additional independent subquery, and we'll get to this in a second. They're going to show up in the same section of the pop-up when you're choosing like exports and filters. But when we are working with them in the main pop-up, because we have the name of the join, it'll be different. But when we're adding our filters here, we'll see this in a second. You can see how I have under my direct filters, I have form independent subquery, and I have two templates. So one of this is this new independent subquery that I'm working with, and one is the original like top layer independent subquery. So what we want is this first one because that is going to be this new join that we're making. I don't know why it's first. Like intuitively, I would think it would be second, but that's not how it works. And I think, yeah, this is just in this clean slate. So we're just going to use this Saturday open house as a proxy for our template or our umbrella event. So because we are going to be linking to the umbrella event for that same day, for some of these situations, we also need to make sure that we're pulling the right umbrella event. And this could be an issue if like maybe you have an umbrella event for inquiries and an umbrella event for admitted students. You can still direct this. It's just you're going to do another independent subquery, which we're not going to do now. I don't think there's a lot of value added to doing that much in this already very gilded build of this deliver. So we're just going to say same date. Always be as descriptive as you can without being overly verbose. Take that from someone who is already very overly verbose 99% of the time. So we're just going to do start date. And again, you see how it's a thing for the exports as well, not just the filters. So we're going to add the start date and time for both. And again, we know this first one is our new join. So we're just going to call this an umbrella. And we're just going to switch this to date because chances are your umbrella event and your random event that day aren't going to have the same time. And then we're just going to call this the event. And we're going to switch that to date as well. And these just need to be the same. That way you're pulling. Now you are going to run into an issue if there is no umbrella event for that day for some reason. You're going to get an error, which this is the second time I'm recording this YouTube live, and I had made we'll call it a simple blunder, and I essentially wasn't pulling any dates for my umbrella event. So if you did see my original YouTube live on this was the issue. Was I had built the first piece before establishing this this join. So if you have no event here, there's no umbrella event for that day, you're going to essentially break your deliver. So you always have to be very in tune with your events team or whoever is kind of running events, making sure that there will be an umbrella event that correlates with these very specific events. You could add an additional filter of just saying like, is this a confirmed, I guess it's probably active. Like you can add like a filters like, oh, I only want to pull in like a confirmed or active, but again, someone turns that tend to be inactive. Yeah, there's a lot of like wiggle room on the kind of backside of this that could go awry. So just again, make sure that you're very in touch with your events in Slate, making sure that you're not going to try to link them to an event that doesn't exist. So what you could do is then just add we'll kind of work how we do the coalesce so that this shouldn't be an issue, but it won't be like a drastic issue. It'll still be an issue that your tributary event's getting assigned up, but you should also just have some kind of data cleanup report to catch those issues. So we're connecting to our umbrella events, and let's see, build our link. So again, typically we're going to be linking to the event itself that we're listing the name of and the time of, but sometimes we're going to need a link to the umbrella event that's happening that day. So maybe we just do umbrella main URL. And we're just going to coalesce this. And a coalesce essentially does it if this first export doesn't have a value, go to the second export. If that second export doesn't have a value, go to the third. And basically we'll just continually going down the list until it finds a export with a value. One thing that I found very annoying with coalesces is if you do an existence export and you leave the like not exist blank, that will break the chain of the coalesce, which is wildly infuriating and frustrating. And for a techno-functional user who doesn't actually have to know what the code is behind the scenes that is causing that break, it's just so annoying. I hate it so much. I feel like once a year I'll try like, maybe it works now, and it never works. So we're going to list our umbrella event URL first, because even if for some reason we want to be displaying the umbrella event URL and it just, maybe it's just not in Slate or it's inactive and we've filtered on that, we don't want people to just get a broken link. So worst comes to worst, they're just gonna, if they're not getting the umbrella link because we don't want them to, or because there's an issue in Slate, at least we're gonna get them to sign up for the actual Slate event. And again, just have a Slate report that's looking for any of your tributary events that should be signed up for through the umbrella event. So we're just going to call this umbrella URL. And we're going to concatenate this as well. Again, we're just going to put several some data pieces together. So we're going to search for our umbrella, and we're just going to search for URL. There's lots of URLs here, but we just want the public facing one. So we're just going to grab that simple URL. And we want to pre-populate or link this to the student record when possible. So we're going to add an and person equals. And this is going to add a parameter to your URL, and we're going to pass through the person or the application GUID, or if it's a data set or whatever it could be. Always use person. So even if you're using the application GUID, just the parameter itself is person. The ampersand here can be an ampersand, or it could be an question mark. The first parameter in a URL is a question mark. So if you don't have a parameter and use an ampersand, going to be issues. Typically, when you have a Slate form or a Slate event, Slate will use the question mark parameter to essentially just call in the that form GUID. If you have overridden that to be a custom URL, then there is no question mark and there is no parameter. That's like no first parameter. So you would use the question mark. You can't like use a question mark and a question mark and a question mark. It has to be a question mark, and then it has to be ampersand. So if you're adding multiple parameters to this, just know which parameter you're doing when. And I would definitely recommend always having like a standard operating procedure. At my old institution, I always did custom URLs. So if there was going to be anything public facing, that a student or whatever kind of record was engaging with it, it always just had a custom URL. That way, whenever we added the personalized links, the first one was always going to be a question mark. At my current institution, we don't have that practice. Most things are just the standard generic default URL. So they already have that question mark. So we just used ampersands. So that was a long diatribe on personalized links. Probably just hopefully AI just cuts that as a clip, and I can just post that. And then since we have our person base, we're just going to use a person GUID, GUID, GIF, however we're doing it. And that's just going to be our URL. So it's going to be the events URL, and we're going to add a personalized URL that links that URL to the student's record. And I just wanted to save that so I, again, don't lose it. I need to be saving these, especially while I'm live. I don't have to like rebuild a 20-minute build. So, we only want this URL to be displayed if the event we're listing in the email should be linked to the umbrella event. So we're just going to pull in a template here. So again, we're going to our main event template, because that's what's relevant here. And maybe, well, what would be a good, like an information session. If it's an information session, it should be using that umbrella event. So we're just going to do that as our filter. And now we're going to build the actual like main events URL. So we're just going to copy that, and we're going to do this as the main URL, and we're going to delete the umbrellas URL, and we're just going to do URL again and do it from this main event listing. So you could do like, so if the flip side of in an information session is not an information session, we can do that. But then I would still recommend some kind of like backstop. So like if for some reason there's no URLs here, there should be something. So I'm just going to inactivate that filter altogether for my main URL. That way they always will be some kind of URL that I can show them that they can sign up for, and we can figure out the breakage later on.